Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. Gaza conflict intensifies with rising casualties and condemnation. Bangladesh Air Force jet crash results in at least 19 deaths. Horrific Vietnam boat capsize claims dozens of lives. Ecuador drug lord extradited to the US. Microsoft suffers major cyberattack on SharePoint servers. European nations pursue new nuclear talks amid rising tensions. China's dam project exacerbates regional tensions. Russia continues attacks in Ukraine alongside diplomatic efforts. China and Vietnam deepen military cooperation during trade disputes. Japan adjusts strategic alliances due to uncertainty. Stellantis struggles with financial pressures caused by US tariffs. Honor killing in Pakistan leads to arrests. Ecuador pool hall shooting results in collateral deaths. Funding dispute between Harvard and the Trump administration escalates. Japan's ruling coalition faces an uncertain future. Gaza conflict escalates, rising casualties and international condemnation to a devastating escalation of violence in Gaza has resulted in the deaths of at least 67 Palestinians seeking UN aid, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. The incident occurred as a 25-truck World Food Program convoy was distributing aid, encountering massive crowds of hungry civilians and facing gunfire. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, claimed they fired warning shots, disputing the casualty figures. Simultaneously, 6 additional deaths and over 150 injuries were reported across Gaza, bringing the total number of deaths attributed to Israeli gunfire and airstrikes to 88 on Sunday alone. The Shifa hospital in Gaza City was overwhelmed, directing wounded individuals to other field hospitals. Amidst the ongoing crisis, a child succumbed to malnutrition, highlighting the worsening humanitarian situation within Gaza. Pope Leo XIV strongly condemned the barbarity of the war, urging an immediate end to hostilities and calling for a peaceful resolution. Following a deadly strike on a Catholic church sheltering approximately 600 displaced people, primarily children, the Pope expressed deep sorrow and appealed to the international community to uphold humanitarian law and prevent collective punishment. The Israeli military issued an evacuation order in the central Gaza Strip, warning of imminent action against Hamas militants. The conflict, now in its 22nd month, has displaced over 2 million Palestinians, with most individuals having been displaced at least once. Following the church attack, Israel expressed deep sorrow and initiated an investigation. The Pope's appeal reflects growing international concern regarding civilian casualties and the urgent need for a resolution to the conflict, emphasizing the protection of vulnerable populations and adherence to international law. The situation remains critically unstable, with continued displacement and escalating loss of life. Bangladesh Air Force jet crash, at least 19 dead. A devastating incident unfolded in Dhaka, Bangladesh, on Monday as a Bangladeshi Air Force training jet crashed into Milestone School and College, resulting in at least 19 fatalities and over 100 injuries. The crash, considered the country's deadliest aviation accident in recent memory, occurred around 1:18 p.m. local time, 3:18 a.m. EST, at the Diabari neighborhood campus. The Chinese made F-7BJ aircraft taking off at 1:06 p.m. so 7:06 GMT quickly lost control and impacted the school grounds. Eyewitness accounts detail a chaotic scene following the crash. Students and teachers reported hearing a massive explosion likened to an earthquake before witnessing a fiery impact. Many survivors, primarily students, were treated in hospitals with at least 83 in critical condition. The pilot was among those killed. Rescue efforts were hampered by extensive fire and debris. Emergency services, including fire and rescue officials, transported injured students on stretchers, while military personnel assisted in clearing the wreckage. The school, which caters to students aged 4 to 18, was left severely damaged. The interim leader, Muhammad Yunus, expressed deep grief and sorrow, stating the loss was irreparable. A day of national mourning was announced, and grieving parents and relatives thronged the National Burn and Plastic Surgery Institute to identify victims. Witness Shafir Rahman Shafi, an 18-year-old student, described the impact as a boom, reminiscent of an earthquake. The crash has been described as the deadliest aviation accident in the country in several decades, surpassing the 1984 Chattogram Dhaka crash that claimed all 49 lives. Investigations have been launched to determine the cause of the crash, and the interim government is prioritizing the treatment of the injured and providing support to the affected families. The incident underscores the severity of the tragedy and the ongoing efforts to provide assistance and address the immediate needs of the community. Horrific Vietnam boat capsize claims dozens of lives. A sightseeing boat capsized in Ha Long Bay, Vietnam, resulting in at least 38 confirmed deaths and 10 rescued individuals, with 4 still missing, according to reports. The incident occurred on Saturday afternoon amidst a sudden and severe thunderstorm. The vessel, the Wonder Sea, was carrying 53 people, including 48 tourists and 5 crew members, primarily Vietnamese nationals from Hanoi. The disaster unfolded near the Doggo Cave, a prominent landmark within the UNESCO World Heritage Site. Survivors recounted a terrifyingly rapid sequence of events. Nguyen Hong Quan stated that the storm materialized within minutes, followed by a massive wave that instantly overturned the boat. Another survivor, Vu An Tu, described the event as lasting only 15 seconds. Quan spent approximately 3 hours adrift on a wooden chair from the sunken boat before being rescued by a fishing vessel, with one of the other 2 individuals succumbing to exhaustion. The storm's suddenness and intensity were a key factor in the tragedy. Weather conditions were further complicated by the impending landfall of Typhoon Wifa, which exacerbated flooding and landslides in northern Vietnam. Authorities are verifying a body found on an islet in the bay to confirm if it belongs to one of the missing. Multiple children were on board, with a 10-year-old boy in stable condition after sustaining injuries. Another 14-year-old boy survived 4 hours trapped within the ship's sunken cabin. The rapid and devastating nature of the event underscores the dangers posed by sudden weather shifts in this popular tourist destination. The incident highlights the vulnerability of small tourist vessels to extreme weather conditions and the ongoing challenges in search and rescue operations within complex coastal environments. Investigations are underway to determine the precise cause of the capsize and assess safety protocols for tourist operations in Halong Bay. Ecuador drug lord Fito, extradited to U.S. The notorious Ecuadorian drug lord Adolfo Macas Villamar, known as Fito, has been extradited to the United States to face multiple charges of drug and arms trafficking. Following his recapture in June after a year-long escape from a high-security prison, Macias will appear in a U.S. federal court on Monday to plead not guilty to international charges. He is the leader of the powerful Los Choneros gang, linked to criminal organizations in Mexico and the Balkans, and is also suspected of involvement in the assassination of presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio in 2023. Macias' escape from prison in January 2024 triggered significant unrest in Ecuador, including a violent takeover of a television station by gangs. In response, President Daniel Noboa declared an internal armed conflict and designated Los Choneros and 21 other criminal groups as terror organizations. Following his capture last month, Macias was discovered hiding in an underground bunker beneath a mansion in Manabí province, equipped with amenities such as a home gym and marble walls. The extradition process involved a U.S. Department of Justice plane arriving in Guayaquil to transport Macias, departing after approximately 2 hours. Prosecutors have requested his detention until trial, citing the ongoing threat he poses and his potential to flee. Macias faces a minimum sentence of 10 years and up to life imprisonment if convicted. His lawyer Alexei Schacht confirmed his client's appearance in Brooklyn Federal Court on Monday, without specifying the time. The Los Choneros gang has been implicated in shipping multiple tons of cocaine from Ecuador to other countries since at least 2020. The entire extradition process was conducted with the sole purpose of prosecuting Maci, as for his involvement in drug and arms trafficking activities. Microsoft faces widespread cyberattack targeting SharePoint servers. Microsoft is currently responding to an active attack, targeting vulnerabilities in its server software, specifically affecting SharePoint servers used within organizations. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, alongside other partners, is investigating the attacks, while Microsoft has issued immediate security updates and urged customers to install them. The vulnerability, a zero-day exploit, allows unauthorized access and manipulation of networks. The attacks, reported by the Washington Post and confirmed by multiple cybersecurity firms, have impacted U.S. and international government agencies, businesses, universities, and energy companies. Estimates suggest over 10,000 companies globally, with the largest concentration in the United States, Netherlands, United Kingdom, and Canada, are at risk. Cybersecurity firms like Palo Alto Networks and Google Threat Intelligence Group have observed and confirmed the exploitation of this vulnerability. Researchers at iSecurity initially identified the flaw, which emerged from a demo presented at the Pantheon hacking contest and replicated by Code White Image. The vulnerability enables persistent, unauthenticated access and the potential for stealing keys used to impersonate users or services, even after patching. Experts warn that this situation is particularly attractive to ransomware operators, who are expected to actively exploit the vulnerability over the weekend. Microsoft has been working on updates for 2016 and 2019 versions of SharePoint, recommending disconnecting servers from the internet until updates are applied. The Cyber Safety Review Board has previously criticized Microsoft's security culture, following a 2023 hack of Exchange Online. which impacted 22 organizations and hundreds of individuals, including former U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo. Recent reports also indicate that Chinese hackers have been targeting Microsoft's remote management tools and cloud applications. The ongoing situation highlights the critical importance of proactive security measures and rapid response capabilities within the cybersecurity landscape. Microsoft's response is focused on containing the immediate threat and mitigating further damage, while broader investigations are underway to determine the full scope of the attack and identify those responsible. European powers seek new nuclear talks amidst escalating tensions. European powers, specifically Britain, France, and Germany, the E3, are actively pursuing renewed negotiations with Iran regarding its nuclear program, driven by concerns over Iran's enrichment activities and the potential for a nuclear weapons capability. Following a series of escalating events, including Israeli military strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities and subsequent U.S. strikes, the E3 are scheduling further talks within the coming week. They have issued warnings that the reactivation of international sanctions against Iran remains an option if Iran does not return to the negotiating table. Iran, blaming European powers for the collapse of the 2015 nuclear deal, is resistant to returning to talks conditioned on halting uranium enrichment. The deal, originally brokered in 2015, significantly curtailed Iran's nuclear activities in exchange for sanctions relief. But the United States' withdrawal under President Trump in 2018 effectively dismantled it. Israel's surprise attacks on Iranian military and nuclear sites on June 13, followed by U.S. strikes on June 22, have heightened tensions. Russia, maintaining a cordial relationship with Iran, held a meeting between President Putin and Ali Larijani, Iran's top nuclear advisor, to assess the situation and seek a political settlement. Russia emphasized the need for regional stability and a diplomatic solution. The snapback mechanism, a provision within the 2015 deal allowing for sanctions reinstatement in case of non-compliance, is being considered by the E3. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi strongly refuted any grounds for activating this mechanism, demanding a shift away from threat and pressure tactics. Iran's stance remains firm, refusing negotiations contingent on abandoning enrichment activities. Recent discussions include a rejection of any conditions placed on resuming talks. The situation remains highly volatile, with diplomatic efforts focused on preventing further escalation and finding a sustainable resolution to the nuclear dispute. The potential for sanctions, alongside the ongoing military and diplomatic maneuvering, underscores the precarious state of the negotiations. China's massive dam project fuels regional tensions. China's commencement of construction on the world's largest hydropower dam, the Motuo Hydropower Station, in the Tibetan Autonomous Region, is generating significant concern among India and Bangladesh. The project, situated within the Yarlung-Tsangpo Canyon, the world's deepest and longest on land, aims to generate 3 times more electricity than the Three Gorges Dam. Chinese Premier Li Qiang oversaw the initial construction, a venture estimated at 1.2 trillion yuan. The primary concern revolves around China's potential control over the trans-border Yarlung-Tsangpo River, which flows into Arunachal Pradesh and Assam in India and Bangladesh. A 2020 Lowy Institute report highlights this, describing it as chokehold on India's economy. Arunachal Pradesh Chief Minister Pema Khandu has expressed fears that the dam will drastically reduce the flow of the Siang and Brahmaputra rivers, posing an existential threat to local tribes and livelihoods, even suggesting a potential water bomb scenario. India has voiced its concerns to China, emphasizing the need for transparency and consultation with downstream countries. India plans to build its own hydropower dam on the Siang River to mitigate potential water releases. Bangladesh has also requested more information about the project. China's motivations include harnessing the region's hydropower potential and transmitting electricity eastward, aligning with President Xi Jinping's Xidiandongsong policy. However, activists criticize the project as exploitation of Tibetan lands and resources, citing past suppression of protests and arrests. Environmental groups raise concerns about the flooding of ecologically significant valleys and the risks associated with building dams in a seismically active region. The project's commencement has intensified geopolitical tensions and underscored the need for international dialogue regarding water resource management in the Himalayas. Russia strikes Ukraine amid fresh talks offerings. Following a proposal for fresh peace talks initiated by Kyiv, Russia launched a significant missile and drone attack on Ukraine early Monday, targeting multiple districts of the capital. The assault involved the destruction of apartment blocks, a nursery, and a supermarket, resulting in 2 fatalities and 15 injuries, including a 12-year-old boy. These strikes occurred despite President Zelensky's willingness to engage in new negotiations. The attack utilized approximately 450 drones and missiles, extending to the western region of Ivano, Frankivsk, and the eastern areas of Kharkiv and Sumy. The assault caused widespread damage, including fires and debris across affected areas. Notably, Vnukovo Airport, a crucial transport hub for the Russian government, was briefly suspended due to the attacks. Concurrent with the attacks, French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot visited Kiev, inspecting the damage to the Lukyanivka metro station, which serves as a shelter for residents. Barrot condemned the attacks, highlighting the vulnerability of the shelter system. He emphasized the timing of the strikes following Zelensky's offer of negotiations, asserting that the actions demonstrated a lack of seriousness regarding a peaceful resolution. The European Union had previously approved an 18th sanctions package targeting Russian banks and reducing the price cap on oil exports, aiming to increase the cost of the war and pressure President Putin to engage in talks. Russia had previously outlined demands, including territorial concessions and rejection of Western military support during last month's negotiations. Kyiv deemed these demands unacceptable. The attacks underscore the continued deadlock in efforts to achieve a ceasefire and highlight the ongoing conflict's severity and the challenges to diplomatic solutions. The situation remains volatile, with continued military action and stalled negotiations defining the trajectory of the war. China, Vietnam strengthen military ties amidst U.S. trade war too. China and Vietnam are forging closer military ties, culminating in their first joint army training exercise scheduled for this month in southern China's Guangxi-Zhuang Autonomous Region, bordering Vietnam. This marks a significant shift in relations between the communist neighbors, driven largely by the escalating U.S. trade war and a desire for mutual economic support. The exercise-themed Joint Border Patrol Training aims to deepen practical cooperation between the two militaries. Recent months have witnessed a marked increase in military cooperation, including China's unprecedented appearance at Vietnam's annual celebration of the fall of Saigon and the PLA Navy's 38th Joint Patrol with the Vietnamese Navy in the Gulf of Tonkin, involving missile frigates from both nations over 200 nautical miles. Furthermore, China's Armed Police Force and Vietnam's Mobile Police Force conducted joint counterterrorism exercises in Guangxi last July. Economically, China remains Vietnam's largest trading partner and a crucial supplier, bolstering Vietnam's manufacturing sector. President Xi Jinping's visit in April, following the trade war's escalation, underscored the need for cooperation against unilateral bullying. Simultaneously, both nations are actively asserting their overlapping territorial claims in the South China Sea, despite Hanoi's ongoing criticism of Beijing's activities. Vietnam has been steadily expanding its presence in the Spratly Islands, including land reclamation and construction of new ports and airstrips with military-related facilities. However, Beijing has largely refrained from public criticism of Hanoi, reflecting the warming ties and heightened concerns over the strengthening defense partnership between treaty allies the Philippines and the United States. Beijing's reaction to the Philippines' claims in the strategically vital South China Sea, including frequent stand-offs involving water cannon use and collisions, highlights the continued tensions within the region. The joint military exercises and increased patrols represent a strategic realignment, driven by economic interdependence and geopolitical considerations, further solidifying the evolving dynamics between these two Asian neighbors. Japan's strategic shift balancing alliances amidst uncertainty. Recent events surrounding Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba's absence from the NATO summit in The Hague, coupled with broader shifts in Japanese foreign policy, highlight a strategic recalibration driven by evolving geopolitical realities. Japan's traditional reliance on the United States for defense technology and procurement is increasingly being challenged as Tokyo seeks greater autonomy and diversification of its security partnerships. This shift is underscored by a growing recognition of the importance of European allies, particularly within the NATO framework and through initiatives like the Indo-Pacific 4, IP4, and the Global Combat Air Program, GCAP. Ishiba's decision not to attend the NATO summit, following similar absences by other IP4 leaders, stemmed partly from concerns over potential friction with the current U.S. administration, particularly regarding defense spending and trade issues. This reflects a broader perception of U.S. unpredictability and a desire to safeguard strategic flexibility. Japan's historical experience with U.S. development programs, including the F-2 fighter, has fostered a cautious approach and a preference for independent technological advancement. Key to this strategic shift is Japan's proactive engagement with European defense companies, evidenced by increased collaboration on projects such as Joint New Air-to-Air Missiles, SGMEM, Universal Radio Frequency Sensor Technology, Jaguar, and trilaterally with France and Germany on railgun technologies. The emergence of the Japan-EU security and defense partnership, formalized in November 2024, further solidifies this trend, encompassing cooperation in maritime security, space, cybersecurity, and hybrid threats. Despite these efforts, challenges remain. The U.S. foreign military sales system's inherent asymmetry, preventing Japan from accessing crucial technological information, continues to pose a significant obstacle. Furthermore, a recent incident involving a request from the U.S. for Japan to increase defense spending to 3.5% and a subsequent cancellation of the annual 2+2 security dialogue in Washington highlighted the ongoing tensions. The establishment of the mission of Japan to NATO represents a crucial step in fostering greater European understanding of the Indo-Pacific region. However, Ishiba's lack of prior engagement with European leaders, coupled with the potential for continued U.S. demands, raises questions about Japan's long-term leadership role in the region. The increasing presence of European defense companies at Japan's Defense Expo and the evolving Japan-EU security partnership signify a fundamental realignment of Japan's strategic priorities, aiming to create a more balanced and resilient security architecture. Stellantis's financial strain due to U.S. tariffs. Stellantis, the automotive giant encompassing brands like Vauxhall, Jeep, and Fiat, has reported a significant financial burden of $300 million stemming from U.S. tariffs imposed by former President Donald Trump. This substantial loss is directly attributable to the 25% tariff implemented on imported vehicles since April, creating considerable disruption within global automotive trade and supply chains. The tariff policy has severely impacted Stellantis's operations, leading to a 25% reduction in shipments to North America during the 3 months concluding in June 2024, compared to the same period in 2024. Furthermore, overall sales for Stellantis decreased by 10% during this period, further exacerbating the financial strain. The company, which owns a diverse portfolio of brands including Alfa Romeo, Maserati, Citroën, Chrysler, and Dodge, is engaged in manufacturing operations across multiple continents, including the US, UK, Europe, Canada, Mexico, and South America. Stellantis's preliminary figures for the first half of the year project revenues of $74.3 billion, but this is significantly offset by an anticipated net loss of $2.3 billion. Largely due to the ongoing tariff impact. The imposition of these tariffs has prompted Jaguar Land Rover (JLR) to temporarily halt exports to the U.S. in response to the trade restrictions. Stellantis's situation highlights the broader consequences of protectionist trade policies on multinational corporations and the interconnectedness of global automotive production. The company's financial performance reflects the considerable challenges posed by the U.S. tariffs and their ripple effect throughout the automotive industry. Broad daylight honor killing sparks arrests in Pakistan. A shocking incident in Pakistan's Balochistan province has resulted in multiple arrests following the alleged execution of a couple by a tribal elder due to an illicit relationship. The disturbing event, captured on video and subsequently going viral, highlights the persistent issue of honor killings within parts of Central and South Asia. At least 11 individuals, including the tribal elder, have been apprehended by Pakistani police following the circulation of the graphic footage. The video depicts a group of men surrounding vehicles where a woman, wrapped in a shawl, slowly walks before being shot at close range. Despite 2 initial shots, she only collapsed after the third. Following the woman's death, the video shows the bloodied bodies of the man and woman. While the authenticity of the videos remains unverified by CNN, police believe the footage accurately represents the murder under investigation. The couple's death stemmed from a verdict issued by the tribal elder, who deemed their relationship a transgression against local customs. Honor killings remain a deeply ingrained problem in Pakistan, frequently carried out by family members or village leaders who believe a relative, often a woman, has brought shame upon the family, frequently linked to choices like marrying outside of family or seeking a divorce. The case echoes previous high-profile honor killings, most notably the 2016 murder of social media star Kandil Balak, which sparked national outrage and led to changes in legislation. Despite the current law carrying a life sentence, the practice continues. According to the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan (HRCP), at least 335 women and 119 men were victims of honor killings in Pakistan last year. Balochistan's Chief Minister Sarfraz Bugti condemned the incident as a blatant violation of social values and human dignity. The case underscores the challenges of combating deeply rooted patriarchal norms and weak law enforcement, perpetuating this dangerous and illegal practice. Ecuador pool hall shooting collateral victims in spiraling gang violence. A devastating shooting in the Ecuadorian town of Playas on Saturday resulted in the deaths of 9 individuals, identified by local media as childhood friends, and has been classified by police as a case of collateral victims. The incident occurred within a popular pool hall and is linked to a broader surge in gang violence that has dramatically escalated Ecuador's murder rate to one of the highest in the Americas. Initial investigations reveal that the gunmen were pursuing two men on a motorcycle when the chase led them to the pool hall. One of the men attempted to conceal himself inside the building, prompting the shooters to enter and open fire without discernible targeting. The police report indicates a premeditated attack was not the primary intention, suggesting the victims were caught in the crossfire of a larger, ongoing conflict. The escalating gang violence in Ecuador represents a critical challenge for the nation's security forces. The shooting highlights the vulnerability of local communities to the destabilizing effects of organized crime. Authorities are currently focusing their efforts on identifying and apprehending the perpetrators, while simultaneously addressing the root causes of the violence. The victims, described as childhood friends, underscore the tragic consequences of the escalating conflict. The police investigation is ongoing, with a primary focus on understanding the specific gang dynamics involved and tracing the sequence of events leading up to the shooting. The incident serves as a stark reminder of the urgent need for comprehensive strategies to combat gang violence and protect innocent civilians in Ecuador. The case is being treated with utmost seriousness, and authorities are committed to bringing those responsible to justice. Harvard and Trump administration funding dispute intensifies. The ongoing legal battle between Harvard University and the Trump administration centers on a $2.4 billion federal funding freeze, initiated in response to concerns about anti-Semitism on campus and Harvard's diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI programs. The administration's demands include governance and leadership reforms, merit-based hiring and admissions, viewpoint diversity, and the discontinuation of DEI initiatives. Harvard argues that the funding freeze is unlawful, a punitive measure violating its academic freedom, and unrelated to the stated concerns. Judge Alison Burroughs, appointed by former President Barack Obama, is presiding over the case. She has previously ruled in Harvard's favor regarding the foreign student visa system, though this decision doesn't preclude a final funding review. Harvard is seeking a decision by September 3, 2025, to finalize grant funding obligations. Negotiations between Harvard and the White House have been fraught with setbacks. Initial discussions aimed at a potential settlement have stalled, with the administration escalating its demands and issuing subpoenas related to Harvard's immigration enforcement. The administration has found fault with Harvard's research, particularly a $12 million biological threat grant, deeming it a grave and immediate harm to national security. The dispute extends beyond anti-Semitism, encompassing Harvard's DEI programs and its ability to enroll international students. The administration has taken action, temporarily removing websites for minority and LGBTQ student centers, a move welcomed by White House officials. Furthermore, the administration is in discussions with Columbia University, reportedly on the verge of a multi-million-dollar settlement. President Trump has repeatedly expressed optimism about a resolution, stating, "I think we're going to probably settle with Harvard. We're going to probably settle with Columbia." The core of the conflict lies in the administration's assertion that Harvard's policies represent a violent violation of the Civil Rights Act. Harvard maintains that its research is unrelated to the accusations, and that the funding freeze is politically motivated. The legal proceedings and ongoing negotiations highlight a significant clash between academic freedom and government oversight, with substantial financial implications for the university. The potential for a settlement remains uncertain, and the case could ultimately reach the Supreme Court. Japan's ruling coalition faces uncertain future following election defeat. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba's future is deeply uncertain following a disastrous election outcome, where his coalition lost its majority in both the upper and lower houses. Exit polls project a significant loss for the Liberal Democratic Party, the LDP, and its partner Komeito, with the coalition securing only around 41 seats in the upper house, a far cry from the 50 needed to maintain control. This marks the LDP's worst result in 15 years and follows a previous loss in the lower house. Voter frustration stemmed from rising inflation, particularly the doubling of rice prices, coupled with a cost of living crisis and lingering resentment over an LDP funding scandal. The Japanese First Sansito Party, embracing an anti-globalist agenda reminiscent of Donald Trump's, made substantial gains, capitalizing on public discontent. This shift in voter sentiment further weakened the LDP's position. The election's outcome has triggered speculation about Ishiba's potential resignation, as has been the case with previous LDP premiers who lost a majority in the upper house. Several potential successors within the LDP are emerging, including Seine Takachi, Takayuki Kobayashi, and Shinjiro Koizumi. However, the fragmented opposition landscape presents a significant challenge to forming an alternative government. The LDP and Komeito's failure to secure a majority in the upper house since 2010, and the subsequent brief Democratic Party of Japan government, highlights the instability of the political situation. Concerns regarding U.S. tariffs, currently at 25% on Japanese imports, and plummeting U.S.-bound auto deliveries, have intensified fears of a potential recession. Despite Ishiba's efforts, including meetings with President Trump and trade envoy visits, a trade deal remains elusive. The Sansito Party's stance on immigration, globalism, and decarbonization further complicates the political landscape. The election's results underscore the deep-seated public dissatisfaction with the LDP's policies and leadership, creating a period of considerable political instability in Japan. That's all for now. Subscribe to InfoStream for your next update.